Narcissist Podcast, where the first recommendation is don't. But unfortunately, that's not always possible. So this is your haven for validation, insight, strategies, and resources. So let's get started. Welcome, I'm Carrie, and this is the Living with Narcissists podcast. Today's episode will go deeper into the approach avoidance, push-pull, up and down, round and round we go until we're dizzy dynamic of the narcissist-victim codependent relationship. As we've learned, codependent relationships are characterized by a circular pattern where one partner, the narcissistic taker, needs the other to support their sense of grandiose self-importance and their fantasy. And the other partner, the codependent giver, needs to be needed to create a sense of security. Unable to fulfill their own physical or psychological needs, both need the external validation of the other, which results in both the narcissist and the codependent victim feeling exhausted, trapped, helpless, and unable to function alone. Codependence can be viewed as a continuum of relational behaviors of dysfunction that exist on a spectrum ranging from mild to problematic. This is the dynamic that Ross Rosenburg refers to as the human magnet syndrome, where the narcissistic taker and codependent giver create a dyadic relationship similar to a math equation that must balance to zero. Ross Rosenburg, the author of the Human Magnet Syndrome, created the continuum of self, COS, which is a theory that measures the range of self-orientations, SOs, and how people are attracted to romantic partners with opposite yet balanced self-orientations. The continuum of self has two self-orientation types: other-oriented, OSO, a natural tendency to focus on the needs of others over one's own needs, or self-oriented, SSO, a natural tendency to focus on one's own needs over those of others. The continuum has 11 markers. The scale starts at -5 and moves toward the other extreme of +5. The -5 marker is the most extreme personality expression of the OSO, other-oriented, focused codependent victim. Moving through the scale, -4, -3, -2, -1, we arrive at the 0 marker, the neutral point, which is considered to be the mythological balance of self-orientation, a perfect balance of being other-focused and self-focused. As we continue past 0 to +5, which is the extreme personality expression of the SSO, self-focused narcissistic taker, on the opposite side of the spectrum, that would be described as pathological narcissism. As we talked about in the previous episode, The Codependency Dance, it takes two to tango, opposites attract. This is the invisible force that naturally attracts someone whose strengths and weaknesses complement the other. Therefore, individuals with codependent, other-oriented personalities and those with emotionally manipulating, self-oriented personalities are drawn to each other like human magnets. The codependent victim is motivated to have their needs met through compulsive giving at the expense of their own needs and tend to deny their own needs for survival, so they will give love and respect without requiring it in return. They can see themselves as a martyr with a tendency toward people-pleasing and victim thinking. The narcissist abuser is motivated to have their needs met at the expense of others through compulsive taking. Focused on their own need for survival, they receive love and respect without giving it in return, and have a tendency to manipulate others without regard for the needs of others. So let's take a look at the relational dynamics that the human magnet syndrome creates when polar opposites are matched up in the mathematical equation that balances to zero, starting with the healthy and moving toward the pathological relationships. These descriptions are from Ross Rosenburg's website. A person with a 0 CSV, continuum of self-value, is a person who participates in relationships where there is an equal distribution of love, respect, and care, LRC, is given and received. They easily ask for what they need from their partners while being open to their partner's needs. With their love, care, respect, balanced relationships, they easily fluctuate between being the recipient and the giver of LRC. This is a perfect balance. The next match, -1 and +1, although not a perfect balance, is still considered to be a healthy balance, because a person with a -1 CSV has a healthy balance between loving, respecting, and caring for self and others. They typically seek life experiences and relationships in which they are able to satisfy their own LRC needs. They tend to participate and appreciate relationships that are based on a reciprocal and mutual distribution of LRC. Although they do derive meaning and happiness when helping and caring for others, and they do not tolerate a selfish or self-centered romantic partner, they may enjoy caring for others. It's not their identity, so they don't see themselves as a caretaker or helper. They just want to help other people, and they don't experience guilt or guilty feelings or feelings of neediness when asking for love, respect, or care. A person with a +1 CSV, the partner to the -1, has a healthy balance between loving, respecting, and caring for self and others. They tend to participate and appreciate relationships that are based on reciprocal and mutual distribution of LRC. This individual values personal and professional goals and ambitions, which they confidently pursue. Although they derive meaning and happiness through the pursuit of their goals and ambitions, they are also cognizant of the necessity to love, respect, and care for their romantic partner. They effortlessly provide LRC to their romantic partner when it's necessary or requested. They may identify the role of a caretaker or helper while being able to fulfill their own goals and ambitions. The next match, -2 and +2, although not a perfect balance, is still considered to be a healthy relationship. A person with a -2 CSV, the giver, is involved in relationships in which their caretaking identity is valued and appreciated, but not exploited. They enjoy relationships with others in which they provide ample amounts of LRC without wanting equal amounts reciprocated. Although they are able to ask for what they want or need from others, they're slightly uncomfortable with doing so. They're more comfortable with a partner who needs more LRC than he is willing to give in return. They're able to set boundaries and ask for what they need when the LRC balance goes beyond their comfort level. They might experience mild feelings of guilt or neediness when asking their partner to meet their own LRC needs, and as much as is possible, they avoid individuals who are narcissistic, exploitive, or manipulative because they are able to set boundaries. A person with a +2 CSV, the taker, prefers to be involved in relationships in which the pursuit to fulfill his own ambitions, desires, and goals are encouraged and supported. In a romantic relationship, they are actively seeking attention, appreciation, and affirmation. Although they are a go-getter and may be consumed with getting the spotlight, they're willing and able to fulfill their partner's needs. They are neither exploitive nor selfish because they are more oriented toward their own needs. They periodically forget about the inequity of the LRC distribution in the relationship. However, they will respond favorably and non-reactively when their partner asks for higher levels of LRC. Although they can be comfortable in a caretaking role, they cannot maintain it. So both of those relationships are considered to be healthy because the partner that is the giver is going to be able to ask for what they need, and the partner will respond. This is where the continuum takes a turn toward the worse, and the next three pairings are considered to be dysfunctional. So a person with a -3 CSV, giver, identifies with their caring and giving nature. They are predominantly focused on the love, respect, care needs of others, while often diminishing, delaying, or excusing away the fulfillment of their own needs. Their identity and reputation is fused with their helping and caretaking nature. So that's become their identity. They tend to be in relationships in which there is an imbalance, giving much more LRC to their partner than they are receiving. This individual is capable of setting boundaries in relationships while also asking for what they need. However, they tend to feel guilty or needy when setting such boundaries or asking for help from others. When they're partnered up with a +3 CSV, who is a mildly selfish and self-centered individual, they're dealing with a person who is predominantly focused on themselves and the fulfillment of their own needs, while often dismissing and delaying or excusing away the fulfillment of their partner's needs. Their identity and image is fused with their need for attention, validation, and recognition. So it becomes an actual need for attention, validation, and recognition. And it's part of their identity. They identify with the person of a go-getter. That's their persona and a successful, driven individual. They are typically in relationships where there is an imbalance in the distribution of LRC needs, expecting or taking more LRC than they are giving. If confronted with the LRC inequity from the -3 partner, they will get defensive, but will be able to make corrections. They can also modulate or control their self-centered traits. Although they may be perceived as self-consumed and self-centered, they are willing and able to give love, respect, and care for their partner, but they need frequent reminders, as this revelation will not come to their awareness without it being pointed out. A person with a -4 CSV has codependent tendencies. They can be a compulsive giver. They're almost always focused on the LRC needs of others, while only intermittently seeking to have their own LRC needs reciprocated or fulfilled. This person is able, albeit unmotivated, fearful, or inexperienced, in seeking LRC from their romantic partner. They often choose to not ask others to fulfill their LRC needs, as they do not want to upset others or cause conflict. If asking for some LRC in return from their partner, they do so nervously and with distinct feelings of guilt or neediness. A person with a +4 CSV taker is a narcissistic individual and is absorbed and preoccupied with the LRC needs of self, while rarely seeking to fulfill the LRC needs of others. They come across as being entitled, self-absorbed, and self-centered, driven to seek LRC from others while giving very minimal amounts of the same in return. They are comfortable with the LRC disparity, believing their feelings and needs are more important than their partner's feelings and needs. Although this person is overtly narcissistic, they are still able to give some nominal levels of LRC to others. However, if confronted with the LRC inequities, they will characteristically get angry, defensive, and will be quick to justify their actions. Nevertheless, they do not experience a narcissistic injury or exhibit narcissistic rage when confronted. And finally, the most extreme and polarized pairing of a -5 with a +5. A person with a -5 CSV giver is a codependent who is completely absorbed with the love, respect, and care LRC needs of others, while completely ignoring and devaluing their own. This is the category of an individual who is often powerless, unable, or unwilling to seek LRC from their romantic partner. A person with a +5 taker CSV is an emotional manipulator, unable and unmotivated to love, respect, and care for others. They are consumed with fulfilling their own LRC needs with no intention of reciprocating. They have great difficulty in exhibiting empathy, unconditional positive regard, or love. When they do give LRC to others, it's typically conditional with strings attached. They are not able to comprehend or accept the pathological levels of their narcissism, and when confronted with the LRC imbalances, they will often strike back with either direct or passive aggression. Before I started learning about narcissism and codependency, I was ashamed of the crazy-making dynamics of my relationship with my husband, and despite listening to podcasts where people try to make you feel better about this destructive dynamic, I could not shed the shame until I listened to the podcast, the Narcissist Apocalypse podcast, where people tell their stories anonymously. It made me realize that I am not alone. I will leave a link in the show notes in case you'd like to check this podcast out. I highly recommend it, as it made me realize that this is happening to other people, other highly intelligent people that are just kind-hearted and giving, and we're allowing people on the narcissistic end of the spectrum, the takers of the world, to emotionally manipulate us. And once I became aware of what was going on and was able to see it happening in other people's relationships, it made me realize that I could control my behaviors and that I didn't need to do that anymore, that I could stand on my own 2 feet, because even if this other person wasn't going to help provide security and safety, which honestly they were never doing anyway, being a compulsive taker, that I could invest that energy that I was giving to somebody else in myself and create my own sense of safety and security, and that I didn't need this other person who was actually hurting me. I didn't need to put my faith in them. I didn't need to put my faith in them. If you like my content, please choose to follow, subscribe, or provide a rating so I can share this information with more people and you don't miss out on future episodes. If you would like to support the podcast with a small monthly donation, you can do that through the listener support link in the show notes. If you'd like to send me comments or questions, you can do that through the comments link on the Spotify app. I hope to hear from you. Thank you for joining me. I hope this information is helpful. I look forward to sharing more in the future. Have a wonderfully peaceful day. Until next time.